Despite Gravity Falls being focused squarely on the town itself, you'd be surprised how deeply connected it is to other shows in both a meta and literal sense. A handful of Gravity Falls alumni branched out to create their own shows that not only have a similar vibe and structure to the iconic Disney series, but have Alex Hirsch involved in some way. Executive producer, voicing a main character, voicing a side character. You get the picture. But some of these shows have crossed over with Gravity Falls in pretty big ways. From major characters having ties with one another, to an entire episode of television being dedicated to the madman that is Stanley Pons. I've talked about most of these crossovers over the years, but with Gravity Falls popping off and gaining new fans every day, alongside most of these shows being over and giving us some new stuff to chew on since I last spoke about them, I thought it'd be great to revisit all of these Easter eggs and connections, compiling them into one big crash course, your guide to the Gravity Falls multiverse. I'm gonna leave out small things like Bill Cipher's cameo in The Simpsons or a pine tree hat popping up in a cartoon, and focus on the big stuff. Things that have interesting lore implications and tells us something new about the cast of Gravity Falls, despite coming from an entirely different show. Also, if you're new to the channel or feeling a stroll down memory lane, be sure to check out Roundtable Rewind, a new channel that has a bunch of Roundtable videos old and new, re-edited into themed compilations. We got 4 out right now on Gravity Falls, Steven Universe, regular show, and a variety of cartoon videos that you can check out. Thank you so much for your continued support. Now let's get into it. The first show Gravity Falls crossed over with actually wasn't a Disney show, and I feel like the further away we get from the 2010s, the more people forget the connections with this cartoon even existed in the first place, which is kinda crazy because it arguably has the most ties with Gravity Falls. I am of course talking about Rick and Morty. It all started with the end credit stinger for Society of the Blind Eye, where Stan loses a mug, a notepad, and a pen to Ford's portal. As it turns out, they weren't just lost in a void. In Rick and Morty's Close Rick Counters of the Rick kind, a classic by the way, Rick and Morty are being chased by the Council of Ricks, leading to Rick opening numerous portals to throw them off his trail. And guess what comes out of one of those portals? Stan's belongings. Now, Close Rick Counters of the Rick kind actually aired 6 whole months before Society of the Blind Eye, so viewers were exposed to this crossover out of order. I can only imagine Rick and Morty fans were scrambling to figure out what these items meant, unaware that in a few months, they'd be tying it back to a kid's cartoon on Disney XD. Now, I think we're supposed to infer from a lot of these Easter eggs that Rick and Ford are friends. Like, they got an interdimensional bromance going on. Or they hate each other. Either one would make sense. They're 2 loner scientists with a soft spot for their family. So while Rick was just firing off random dimensions, a part of me wonders if the Gravity Falls universe was calibrated into Rick's portal gun because years prior, he was trying to do Ford a solid and get him back home, when Ford was traversing the multiverse. Ford's wanted poster has a cipher that when decoded reads, Rick was here, which I feel like he'd only do for someone he knows personally, whether if that's a rival or a buddy. Not to mention the episode Morty's Mind Blowers features memory bowls labeled Stanford and Bill C, meaning that either Rick or Morty had memories of the 2 that were erased. Maybe Morty somehow found out about Ford and Bill's existence, the whole dilemma they got going on. And to ensure that Morty would never be tempted to contact Bill, Rick wiped his memory, because let's face it, Morty loves his dangerous and irresponsible shenanigans. Or maybe Ford's intelligence got under Rick's skin, so to preserve his own ego, he removed Ford from his memory. Conversely, there's a memory capsule in the black market labeled Rick S in the graphic novel Gravity Falls Lost Legends. So either Rick came to Gravity Falls at some point and was caught slipping by the blind eye, or Ford somehow got his hands on a memory gun and for whatever reason, wiped Rick's mind. Maybe the 2 realized their minds and knack for adventure would cause way too much chaos across the multiverse and decided to cut their bromance short, wiping each other's memories clean and staying in their respective worlds. Or since this is Morty's Mind Blowers, maybe Morty learned about Ford and thought he sounded pretty cool. But Rick couldn't risk Morty idolizing a cool but bitter old man who's really smart and isn't his grandpa. So he zapped Ford's name right out of Morty's head. I know there's no clear answer to all of this, but it's fun to think about. Some Bill Cipher imagery pops up throughout the show, which is cool, because Bill can see through any depiction of himself, regardless of the reality, which means he's definitely keeping an eye on the Sanchez family. Rick's portal gun is exactly the kind of technology that Bill would kill to get his hands on. And it wouldn't be hard to trick any of the Smith family into making a deal, barring Rick and Space Beth. So it tracks that he keep an eye on them, but he hasn't mustered the courage to actually make a move because he knows Rick would catch on to his act fast. And on the topic of Bill, one of his henchmaniacs, 8-Ball, could actually be spotted dead and decaying in an alien spa's toxin tank in the episode Rest and Rick Laxation. However, this machine actually removes the toxicity from your body, leaving it as a sentient goopy clone of yourself. So odds are, 8-Ball just came to the spa and used the tank to expel the part of himself that was willing to incite an apocalypse and go on like a week-long rager, even though time was frozen. Homie's trying to better himself. That's probably why none of the henchmaniacs have called Bill while he's in the Theraprism. They're trying to leave that in the past, bro. Also, 8-Ball's alive in Lost Legends, so yeah, this is definitely not his actual dead body. We also know that there's a Dipper Morty and a Mabel Morty out there in the multiverse, as they were spotted in the Citadel of Ricks, and Mabel Morty pops back up in Lost Legends. Despite these two fitting in the greater Rick and Morty mythos, their existence actually connects to the next show that crossed over with Gravity Falls, Amphibia. I don't know how many Gravity Falls fans have seen Amphibia. Like, if you're an Amphibia fan, odds are you're into Gravity Falls, but I don't know how often it's the other way around. Which is a shame, because the show was created by a Gravity Falls alumni, Matt Brawley, who gave us that insane scene from the Gulf War. You know, the one with Big Henry. Amphibia has some pretty cool lore and a whole ass crossover episode of Gravity Falls, Wax Museum, the episode that concludes the road trip arc that kicked off season 2. Anne and the Planters have almost reached Newtopia, the capital of Amphibia that may have the answer to getting Anne back home. But they make one more stop, a small town named Stony Gulch, and it isn't long before they wind up at the Curiosity Hut, an alternate universe version of the Mystery Shack ran by Mr. Ponds and his trusty janitor, Frog Soos. But this is a universe where Stan never took in Dipper and Mabel for a summer, so he's a lot more corrupt and money hungry. Whereas the Stan we know and love has a lot of fake attractions at the Mystery Shack, all the attractions Mr. Ponds has in the Curiosity Hut are real monsters. They're just encased in wax. Anne, not knowing any better, volunteers to be one of Mr. Ponds' attractions so she can obtain a CD player from Earth that somehow winded up in Amphibia. Mr. Ponds tries to blindside her, only to get his comeuppance as all the monsters are freed from the wax and kills him.
Calm down, everyone, it's just wax.
Except for that curator, he's dead.
No, this is cute as its own 11-minute thing, but there's a joke from Frog Soos that, as a certified lore whore, I can't help but read into.
Say, Mr. Ponds, do you ever get the feeling that we exist simultaneously in multiple parallel universes, completely unaware of the other's very existence?
Frog Soos ponders that they exist in every reality, something that's not only validated by Gravity Falls itself, but Dipper Morty and Mabel Morty. I'd like to think that this ties back into the Bill Cipher Zodiac, that if you're a symbol on the wheel, you exist in every reality. And you're pretty easy to identify. And on the topic of Bill, he appears in a book called Dr. P's Guide to Magic and Mystery. When Amphibia was still on the air, a lot of fans speculated that Dr. P could be short for Dr. Pines, and that this book was written by Ford or an older Dipper. But now that the series is finished, I'm pretty sure it was written by a character named Leaf. Without going into too much detail, she was able to traverse the multiverse for a bit. Although as far as we know, she only came to Earth and then back to Amphibia. It makes sense she's aware of Bill, since she was able to travel the multiverse. He probably saw her as another opportunity to unleash Witmageddon and made contact with her. But thankfully, she knew better than to work with him. Amphibia's big bad, the Core, is also currently in the Theraprism, after having its ass handed to it by Anne. I almost feel bad for Bill. A hive mind of narcissists is a lot to deal with, but hey, he's no better. Also, you know how Bill has beef with the Time Baby and tries to kiss the axolotl's ass? Well, I think there's another god out there who he's aware of and vice versa. The Guardian, aka the Three Stones deity, Amphibia's god who might be overseeing the entire Disney TVA multiverse. If I had to guess though, the Guardian's not fond of Bill, considering how disappointed it is in mortals for handling the power of the Calamity Stones irresponsibly. All Bill does is use his godly power irresponsibly.
How about this?
let's move on to our last show, The Owl House. Not only created by the incredibly talented Dana Terrace, but it features Alex Hirsch voicing two prominent characters, and it's a show that directly references Amphibia. Anne's disappearance on Earth is randomly acknowledged in it. I like to think that all of these shows take place on the same Earth, different states just have different art styles. A lot of early teases for The Owl House actually came from Gravity Falls Lost Legends, in the story that Dana helped illustrate. There's a wanted poster of Eda the Owl Lady, and somehow Albert, Eda's palisman, ended up far away from home. Somebody save my boy from the Gravity Falls black market! Of course, the biggest and most well-known connection between Gravity Falls and the Owl House is that, in a shocking twist, Eda is actually Stan's ex-wife. I've made a whole video about this that you can check out, but Eda has a track record for traversing between Earth and the demon realm, stirring up trouble and swindling the masses. And she did this under the alias of Marilyn, which just happens to be the fake name of Stan's ex-wife, who he describes as having pale skin and a sharp tooth, wearing a shirt that says, over 30 and very flirty. Sound familiar? Also, this is not a website.com describes Marilyn as cursed and goat tooth. And I mean, yeah, Eda is both of those things. It's definitely her. According to Stan, they got married in Vegas, but it only lasted for a weekend. She just wanted his money in his car. Aw, Eda, why'd you have to do him like that? Well, Stan's a con artist, so I guess it's just karma. I should also touch on an old theory that King from the Owl House is actually a reincarnation of Bill Cipher, both being voiced by Alex, the axolotl saying Bill would be reincarnated as a different form in a different time, King allegedly wielding immense power by having large gaps in his memory. It was a fun idea that people had just enough to work with. But now that we know what really happened to Bill, and what King's whole deal is, it's safe to say that the theory is dead in the water. The Owl House definitely has the fewest direct Easter eggs of the three, but it's still very easy to rationalize why all of these universes are connected. At the end of the day, it's just fun to think that the characters of all these cartoons I adore can coexist. I think people can be soured on the idea now because of the MCU-fication of Hollywood, but I grew up with Cartoon Network and those little CD bumpers they used to have, so I've always ate this kind of stuff up. It'd be nice if at least the Disney shows could have an official crossover one day that isn't just Chibiverse. No shade to Chibiverse, I like Chibiverse, but give me something a little more Jimmy Timmy Power Hour. And there you have it. Every Gravity Falls crossover explained, at least for now. Who knows what the future has in store? What kind of crossovers would you want to see with the series? Let me know in the comments down below, and keep in touch by giving me a follow on Twitter and Instagram at OstricFox and at Roundtable Vids. Shout out to Jakey Bones for another dope thumbnail, give him a follow at Jakey Bone on Twitter, and check out Toontrip for some dope cartoon merch. If you enjoyed this video, please throw it a like, and subscribe to the Roundtable for more great cartoon content. Thanks for watching, and I hope you have an awesome day. Peace!